Hello everyone. Today we will learn the topic fever with rash, and we will start with a beautiful mnemonic. Very sick patient must take double tablets. Here V stands for varicella, S for scarlet fever, P for pox, M for measles, T for typhus, D dengue, and T typhoid fever. And in this column you can see ranging from day 1 to 7, and these are the days of appearance of rash after fever. For example, in varicella, rash appears on day 1 of the fever. It means the same day. In scarlet, day 2, and so on. Now we will see the most high yield points for each of these 7 conditions. Varicella, the rash appear on day 1 of the fever, and the rash appear in crops, and the lesions are of various stages, from vesicles to crust, and the rash appear first on the trunk and then spreads to face and extremities. Scarlet fever, the rash appear on day 2 of the fever, and we can remember the high L for scarlet fever by mnemonic scarlet itself. S for sore throat, C circumoral pallor, A, it is caused by group A streptococci, R for rash, and the rash is sandpaper-like, rough, grainy, sandpaper-like, and it starts from first appear on the neck and then spreads to trunk and extremities. L for lymphadenopathy, and E for erythrogenic toxin, and S for strawberry tongue. Pox. In pox, the rash appear on day 3 of the fever, and all the lesions are at the same stage. And the rash first appear on the face and then spreads centrifugally to the extremities. In measles, the rash appear on day 4 of the fever, and the rash is maculopapular rash. First appear on face and behind ears, and then spreads downward. And we can remember the high L for measles by 4C, that is cough, coryza, conjunctivitis, and Koplik spots. Koplik spots are reddish spot on the buccal mucosa with whitish center. Now typhus, the rash appear on day 5 of the fever, and the rash first appear on the trunk and then spreads to extremities. Remember, in typhus, the rash is not present on palm and sole, that is palm and sole are spared. Dengue, the rash appear on day 6 of the fever. There is maculopapular rash and is described as islands of white in a sea of red. This means there is diffuse red color rash and normal white patches of skin in between. And this rash appears during late febrile phase. In typhoid, the rash appear on day 7 of the fever, and the fever is described as typically step ladder pattern, and the rash is described as rose spots. These are salmon colored rash on abdomen and trunk. There is an important sign called Faggot sign. Faggot sign means relative bradycardia. We know that during fever, the heart rate increases, that is tachycardia, but in typhoid usually there is relative bradycardia. This is Faggot sign. And the last one is leukopenia. This is also in contrast to most bacterial infections, because in bacterial infections the number of leukocytes is increased, but in typhoid fever usually we can see leukopenia. Let's see some more conditions of fever with rash, and the first one is Kawasaki disease. It is a form of vasculitis, and the high yield points can be remembered by mnemonic crash and burn. C for conjunctivitis, R rash, that is polymorphous rash. A for adenopathy, usually cervical lymphadenopathy. S for strawberry tongue. H for hand and foot changes, that is edema and erythema. And here burn means hot, hot means high temperature, and high temperature means fever. And the fever is more than or equal to 5 days. So for Kawasaki, the fever must be more than or equal to 5 days. Now we will see two rickettsial disease, that is Rocky Mountain spotted fever and typhus. Rocky Mountain fever is caused by rickettsia, rickettsii, and typhus. Here typhus is of two types, epidemic typhus and endemic typhus. Epidemic typhus is caused by Rickettsia prowazekii, and endemic typhus is caused by Rickettsia typhi. The vector for Rocky Mountain fever is tick, and the vector for typhus, here are two typhus, that is epidemic and endemic. For epidemic, it is human body louse, and for endemic, it is rat flea. So here the typhus is of two types, epidemic and endemic, and the causative agent for these two are different, and the vector are also different, but rest of the feature, clinical sign and symptoms are almost same. The rash for Rocky Mountain spotted fever start on wrist and ankle and then spreads to trunk. So this is centripetal distribution. For typhus, the rash first appear on the trunk and then spreads outward, centrifugal distribution. And here you can remember, like Rocky Mountain spotted fever starts with R, and in the wrist, it just remember R. Omit W and remember R, wrist R, and Rocky Mountain spotted fever R. And for typhus, it starts with T, and also the first rash appear on the trunk, TT. So typhus, rash appear on the trunk and spreads outward, centrifugal distribution. For Rocky Mountain fever, rash appear on the wrist, RR, and then spreads to trunk. This is centripetal distribution. In Rocky Mountain spotted fever, palms and soles are involved, but in typhus, palms and soles are spared. The important clinical setting for Rocky Mountain fever is a patient went for camping or hiking, then tick exposure, rash appear first on wrist and ankles, and then spread to palms and sole. The clinical setting for typhus is homeless refugee camps, overcrowded conditions, exposure to body louse, and the rash first appear on the trunk, spreads to extremities, sparing palms and sole. Rubella. The rash is typical fine maculopapular rash. First start on face and then spreads to trunk and extremities, same like measles. And in rubella, the rash typically persists for 3 days and then disappears. That's why it is also called as 3-day measles or German measles. There is fever with post-auricular lymphadenopathy. This is very high L. Remember congenital rubella? It is a triad of 3 defects. And you can remember these 3 defects by mnemonic CEE. C for cardio, and the defect is patent ductus arteriosus. E for eye, and the defect is cataract. Ear, and the defect is sensory neural hearing loss. And there is a typical blueberry muffin erythema infectiosum. It is caused by parvovirus B19. And the rash is described as slap cheek rash on face. This is very high L. Roseola infantum, also known as exanthum subitum. This is caused by human herpes virus 6 as well as 7. And for this, just remember, fever appears first and then suddenly disappears. And after that, only the rash appears. So fever first and then rash later. Thank you.